Hi guys, it's me, James at Drayton, here with another live training session tonight. I hope your working week is going well. So I thought I'd put a quick session in tonight, really based on what customers have been asking me. So this is all going to be about what we can do to get our customers ready for winter. The temperature gauge in the van dipped to 9 degrees today. That's the all-important number. And that's really piqued people's interest in making sure their systems are ready for winter. Hence why we've got the 9-degree network. That's where that number's come from. So tonight is all going to be about what we can do to really drive energy efficiency. So for me, the customers, what they're asking me is they're wanting. Obviously, it's all about saving money at the moment, especially with energy costs the way they are. It's always been really about driving efficiency, and there's one sort of plays into the other. So it's what we can do, quick wins. If the customers want to get there and get you in, not going to cost them a huge amount of money, but just go through the system and make sure that it's it's optimized. So quick wins that don't really cost anything. Making sure there's no air in the system. And making sure that make sure the customers are having their boilers serviced on a regular basis. That's really the sort of quick wins where we're not actually fitting any new parts to it, but it can really have a good impact on driving efficiency. But what we can do if we want to start, really making sure that the customers' systems are how they should be, balancing. That's probably the biggest one. Without having to fit any parts necessarily, making sure their systems are balanced. So what I'm going to be featuring tonight are the auto balancing valves. But what I really want to talk to you is about our standard valve as well. So again, any questions while I'm on, stick them in the comments. I'm keeping an eye on them. So if there's anything you want to talk to me about other than what you're seeing, or if you've got any questions about what you see, just pop it in the comments and I'll come back to you. So let me do this top-down camera. So these are our new auto-balancing valves. So as the name suggests, they make sure that your system is in balance all the time, which obviously is a good thing to do. Now you can with the old body. So this is the EB body that we've got. So this is what you would be supplied with our TRV4 and the RT414s. Essentially, it's supplied on anything that's not the RT212. RT212 has a fixed flow rate body. So you can't really do a lot with it. With that, you are going to be balancing mostly using the lock shield. But for this body, the EB body, this is the one that you can change the gland seal in at the top. So you've probably all got one of these by now. We tend to give them away at the events and that, or you can buy them. This is our balancing key, but you can remove the gland seal if you want from the valve body. You can do this on a live system with this body. So again, not a bad idea to do this if your customers are reporting that the system pressure is dropping. It may be that the gland seal is leaking, so you can get in there and replace that using this tool and the gland seals which are available from your merchants. Do it on a live system. Don't need to drain down. It's a secondary seal, so it's not holding back system pressure. It's only just anything that gets past the pin into that little chamber. You can it just stops it coming out. So those screw in, and you screw them in until they are flush with the top of the insert. You can see there. It's flush with the top of the insert. If you drive it all the way down, you'll stop the pin moving completely. But again, nice thing to do. Make sure that it gives the bodies a little bit longer life, because you can actually make that change. Now, going back to the subject of balancing, you can actually balance using these bodies. Now you can probably see on the top there, around the top of the insert. So this is where we're looking. You'll see that that's got it in shot. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's positions within the insert, which changes the aperture size. So you can see there in the output. So in position 6, which is with the you can see position 6 there is in line with the output of the valve. That's your biggest the greatest amount of flow rate. So you're already limited by the drilling that's in there. I think that's a 6 mil hole, but that gives the valve quite a lot of valve authority. So it means that the natural resistance to flow is greater with this than, say, something like the body that comes with the RT212 that's got the fixed flow rate. So that means that you're already making things easier to balance. You don't need to do too much throttling to be able to have quite an effect on the system. Remember, the whole point of balancing is we want to make sure that there aren't any short circuits in the system. No one radiator has got any is got easier to flow than any other. So that's the whole point of what we're trying to do with balancing. And the way we do that typically is radiators closer to the boiler will be throttled down, so will increase the resistance on those. We can't take resistance away from the system. You've got resistance within the system, which is just the natural friction of water passing through pipework and then passing through the radiators. So your furthest away radiators, you're going to probably have them on the widest setting or the greatest flow rate setting. And then as you get closer to the boiler, those will be throttled down. Now, you can do it with the lock shield, but if we look at the lock shield, you can see that it's quite a wide open aperture there. So there's not a lot of valve authority with these. And what that means is that if you've got, say, 10 turns of this knob on top, this is actually the locking knob that's on here, but you would swap this out to the one that's actually the adjustable cap. If you've got 10 turns, the reality is that only the sort of last sort of maybe 2 are actually doing anything. So you get a lot of travel where you're not doing much, and then it all happens in the last 2 turns. Now, if you've got a greater valve authority, which is what these do, because we've got that small hole there, there's already resistance built in before you start changing the aperture size. Now, the way you change the aperture size is, you can see you've got the clamp ring at the top there, and you use this end of the balancing key, pop it in there, and you want to be turning this no more than 180 degrees. So just enough to loosen it, like that. So loosen the clamp ring just about half a turn. So you're going from there where it's tight around to something like that. You don't want to take it all the way out, because that's what's holding the valve insert in. So if you take the clamp ring all the way out, which you can do, it will allow you to do that. If you take it all the way out like that, there is essentially nothing other than the friction of the seal on the side of the side of the insert that's holding that into the brass casing of the body. So, system pressure behind that, you've essentially got yourself a projectile. So don't take the clamp ring all the way out. All you do is loosen it off by about 180 degrees. So from there where it's tight, pop it round half a turn. Once you're at that stage, you then flip the tool over. Don't drop the tool on the floor. Flip the tool over, and you pop it into the little detents that you've got on the side there. You can see one's bigger than the other. So when it's there, that then allows you to turn the insert, and there are numbers on the top of the tool which mimic the numbers that are on the top of the insert. So you can see there that we're currently in position number 1 there. That's the number that aligns with the output. See if I can get that in shot for you. So position 1, and then if you look through the hole there, you can see that we haven't just got the wide open aperture there. It's actually been throttled down to the smallest aperture. So you turn this in a clockwise direction. You only ever turn it in a clockwise direction, and that's so that if it does pick up the clamp ring as you're turning, you're only ever going to tighten it. Remember, the thing we can't do is completely remove that clamp ring, because that then becomes a projectile with system pressure behind it. And you need to be setting it on whole increment numbers. So you've got 1 to 6. So 6 is the biggest opening, and then number 1 is smallest, and then you go 2, 3, 4, 5, getting progressively bigger. What I'll do is I'll pop the insert out so that you can see that. Let me just get rid of the clamp ring, and I'll pop this out. So there is the insert. Obviously, you're not going to be doing this on a live system because you've now got water going everywhere. But that's position 6, which aligns with the port in the body when it's down inside there. And then you've got position 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 progressively getting bigger. And on the box that these come in, you've got the different kV values for what each of the positions are. So you can actually do the maths on it and work out what position it needs to be in. Or you can use your differential thermometer and go between the two, between the flow and return, and try and get the delta T across the radiator that you want. So that's the old way of doing it. But the newer way, and the better way, is to use the auto balancing valve. So there's 2 here that I've got. These are available in angled and straight. The only difference between these 2 is this is the 𝗻𝗵𝘁, and this is the RT414, but you can get them in angled and straight in 15mm. And what you've got here is this. So dimensionally the same size as the EB body. So it's an easy swap out. You're not going to be cutting any pipes or having to pull any olives off or do anything like that. You can just swap them out exactly. But what you're doing here is on the when you turn the insert this time, you're setting flow rate. So you should be able to see around the top there, we've got 1 to 15. So position, it's actually in the commissioning position now, which is the widest position. And then you've got 1 to 15 around the top. Now that is 10 times liters per hour. So if you're in position 1, that's 10 liters per hour. There's actually a cutaway here that shows you what's going on inside. But if you're in position 1, that's 10 liters per hour. Now again, you're using either an 11mm spanner or you can use the presetting key. And what you're turning is that top portion. So you turn it around like that. You've got your little witness mark there, which is what you're set against. So if I want to set that to say 100 liters per hour, that will be position 10 on the top. So you can see there we've got position 10 adjacent to that little mark. That will give me 100 liters per hour. Now that will be 100 liters per hour regardless of temperature or pressure changes that you've got on the system. So as other TRVs start to throttle down, your system pressure is going to go up. If you've just got a fixed aperture size, that's going to allow more flow into the radiator, which means that when you're balancing with either the lock shield or by turning this to a fixed aperture size, you're only really balanced at one point in the sort of evolution of the heating system from warming up, holding temperature, and then things starting to throttle down. You're only really balanced at one of those points. Whereas with these will respond and they will change the aperture size. So again, we're still just modulating the aperture size with regards to the water that's being able to enter the radiator, but we are doing it. We're fixing the flow rate. So if pressure increases or decreases, you're still going to get that flow rate into the radiator. So it's a really good thing to do. 8.8% is the statistics on having a fully balanced system. Now, that's not just using the auto balancing valve. That's just having a system that is in balance. What these do is they enable you to always be in balance, and it really takes the legwork out of it. Whereas with this, you've either got to do the calculations on what size, what hose size you want, or the more sort of iterative way of using your differential thermometer across the flow and return, working out what delta T you want across the radiator. This takes the legwork out of it because you're setting the flow rate. Now, what is the flow rate? What does the flow rate need to be? Well, there's two ways of finding that out. You've got the insert on the top of the box here. So if you know your the output of your radiator in kilowatts, or in watts in this case it is, but if you know what that is, you can then calculate based on what delta T you want across the radiator. So industry standard is a delta T of 20 degrees, but you can have a delta T of 10 or 15. Now, some radiators will only give you the delta T of 20. So that's what you've got to work with, which is why we say it's sort of the industry standard. Some of your radiator manufacturers will tell you if you've got a delta T of this is the performance you get for the radiator. So there are three delta Ts there. Now you'll notice there is no delta T of 5 because we wouldn't be using these with a heat pump. Because you simply can't get enough flow rate through them. So auto balancing valves are for the more conventional ways of heating, conventional ways of heating your home. You're not going to be using these on a heat pump. If you've got a heat pump, you'll be using the standard EB body or the fixed flow rate body that comes with the RT212. We are looking at maybe doing a TRV that's optimized for heat pump. That's what our sort of product management are looking at the moment. Now, word of warning here that this value, this output value, so 700 watts, say, that's going to be based on a flow temperature dictated by what your radiator manufacturer says. So if you buy a 700 watt radiator, that will be 700 watts at 75 degrees maybe. So what you need, if you're not running 75 degrees, and remember we're all trying to reduce our flow rate temperature down to sort of 55 degrees for a combi. Your 700 watt radiator won't be 700 watts anymore. It will be 700 watts at 75 degrees. You'll need to look at what the radiator manufacturers show the output to be at the lower flow temperature. So once you know that, it may be that it's 700 watts at 75 degrees. It may be that it's only a 600 watts if you drop the flow temperature down. So you would then use that 600 watt value and then work out what position you would need to set it to. So in this case, if it was 600 watts, position 3 with a delta T of 20, that's 30 litres per hour. Remember, the numbers here are 10 times litres per hour. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is to head over to our website. Now, this is for if you don't know what the radiator output is, you can actually measure it. So measure it, put your statistics in there, put your details in of your height and width of the radiator. Then you can choose the type of radiator. So, type 10 is essentially, they're really old style. You don't tend to get them so much now. Certainly not really going to be fitting any of those. But type 10 is what you would choose if you were looking at, say, like a tower rail, where you've just got the rails. You haven't got any of the convector fins at the back. Type 11 is a panel with fins. And then you've got all the way up to type 33, which is triple panel and triple fin. You stick your details in there, stick your flow temperature in there, and again that will then calculate what setting you would need to set the auto balancing valve to, based on your choice of delta T, 10 degrees, 15 degrees, or 20 degrees. So a really nice way of really driving efficiency into your system is using the auto balancing valves, and it makes sure that the system is always in balance regardless of changes of pressure and temperature on the system. And also what you can do is you can sort of pre-balance the system. So if you know that new radiators are going in, you can do your calculations either from the box or using the calculator, and you can get sort of set it up the day before. So when you're actually fitting them, there is no balancing to do at the end. You just fit the appropriate valve to the radiator with how you've set it, and you know that the system is in balance. Now, I will take you through and show you where this sort of theory comes from. Let's just hopefully not melt your head with too much maths, but this is really the mass flow rate calculation. So I just really want to give you a bit of a background on where it's coming from. So what we've got here is that's the top line there is that mass flow rate, which is essentially your total mass is the difference between the difference in mass and the difference in temperature. It doesn't really mean a lot, but what it boils down to is this calculation here, which is that the flow rate into a radiator is a function of the heat output divided by the specific capacity of heat times your delta T. That's why this delta T is all important. Now, specific heat capacity of water is approximately 4.2. It's a constant, so you don't need to worry about that. You just remember that as being 4.2. So it's 4.2 times by your delta T. So if you use the industry standard of 20 degrees, you essentially end up with this. The flow rate is equal to your heat output, which you know because that's going to be what the size of your radiator is and what your flow temperature is going through it, divided by 84 in this case, using the delta T of 20. So for your 700 watt radiator, remember this is in kilowatts, so it's 0.7 divided by 84, renders it down to 30 litres per hour, which is, if we have a look at the box, you can see that tallies with, if we had a 700 watt radiator with a delta T of 20, it's going to be position 3. So the maths checks out on that. You have to do a little bit of long-winded it because it gives you it in litres per second, and obviously what we actually want is litres per hour. So times it by 60 and then times it by 60 again, or indeed times it by 3,600, which is 60 squared. But ultimately that's just to give you a little bit of info as to where we're actually getting these calculations from. But it comes from the mass flow rate, and what you really need to remember is that the flow rate is equal to heat output divided by 4.2 times your delta T. Now, if your delta T changes to 20, or if it changes from 20 to 10, it's not going to be divided by 84 anymore. It's going to be half of that. And again, 5, we wouldn't use 5. That's why we sort of steer it away from being able to choose 5, because you just can't get enough flow rate through. But this flow rate calculation is just as applicable if you're doing heat pumps where you're using the EB body or the fixed flow rate body. Right, so that's really all there is to say on auto balancing. Next thing I want to talk about is this, which is the new Digistat. So one of the things we can do for our customers is move them over from a standard on-off thermostat to a load compensated thermostat, which is what we've got with the new Digistat. But one of the added bonuses with the new Digistat is we've got this Bluetooth app control. So this enables you to do your scheduling instead of doing it on the front of the device. You're able to use your mobile phone using the Wiser Home app. While you're within the property or in range of Bluetooth, you can get in there and do the scheduling. So that's really the big news, the big feature for the customer. We have also added in other features, and we've simplified the range. So what I'm going to show you now here is, remember with the old Digistat, you had something like 20 different SKUs, because you would either buy a 24-hour or a 7-day, or you'd buy it based on the sort of timings that you wanted to do. With this, it boils down to 4 SKUs now. So you now buy the new Digistat, but based on the application that it's going to be fitted to, rather than the type of control. So 2290B, this is your battery version. So this is the 2-wire thermostat. This is brilliant for keeping on the van as van stock, because you only need the 2 wires in there. You need the incoming, the live in and the live out. You only need the 2 switch wires. You don't need a neutral, because the batteries actually run the thermostat. So this is brilliant to keep on the van, because it doesn't matter what you come up against. Even if you're replacing an old bimetal thermostat, you know that you're going to have enough wires there to be able to fit it. Downside, obviously, is you're going to be replacing batteries every 12 to 18 months, but you will get a year out of the batteries on the 2290B. We've then got the 2290M, which is the main version of it. So again, this is if you've got the neutral there, you'll be able to use this, particularly, and if you're running in a new, if it's a new control where you're able to run in enough wires, you're probably going to use the 2290M. This has also got an OpenTherm connection on it. You can see there we've got the OpenTherm logo, so you can use this for relay control or OpenTherm, only on the 2290M, not on the B. So those are your 2 wired options. And then we've now also got the 2 wireless options. So RF901, this one here, this is going to be replacing the RF701. Remember the Digistat Plus 3, and also the RF700, which is the Digistat Plus 2 RF and Plus 3 RF. That replaces this. So again, you're not buying it based on your timings. You're buying it because you want a single channel wireless room thermostat. Now this one also has got OpenTherm, so on the receiver has got extra terminals. I'll show you that in a minute for OpenTherm. And then this is the real exciting one. This is where you can really drive your customers' efficiency really easily, is with this 2-channel. So this can do heating and hot water, or it can do 2 heating zones. So if you want to zone a combi, you can use this to do that. But really what it's really ideal for is if you've got an LP control, so like an LP522, you can take the LP off the wall, replace it with this receiver in the same way that you would with a Wiser Kit 2, but it gives the customer immediate load compensation. So whereas the LP is just a standard timing unit, and then you'd have maybe like an RTS1, a dial thermostat, if you pop that in place of the LP, you've immediately got load compensated control. So you can optimize it for the different fuel types, the different cycle rates. So you're still going to use your existing cylinder stat. The only thing you're going to do is if there's a wired room stat on the wall, you're going to link it out in exactly the same way that you would with Wiser. So this is a really good way. If your customer says, what control, if I've got an S plan or a Y plan, what control can we easily upgrade to that gives me some extra efficiency? This is it, with minimal invasiveness. You're just replacing that, and that gets them a wireless thermostat, which they can then program both their heating and hot water on. So that's a bit of a game changer, that one. The rest of them sort of replicate what we had in the old Digistat. lineup. So let's have a look at what you get in the box. So this is going to be, this is your wired one. So 2290M. So this is the new Digistat. They all look broadly the same when you look at them from the front. The B, this is actually, on the B version, the battery version, this is actually your battery compartment that will pop off. It doesn't on the mains one because it's mains powered. But then you've got two screws underneath that allow you to split the casing. So with the screws open like that, that allows it to split in half. We've now got this cover, so if we ever get the customers going in there, you know, changing out faceplates or whatever, we've got this cover that protects them from the incoming mains. So that's quite a nice feature. When you look inside, you've got essentially three terminal rails in here. You've got, this is your switching contact, so this is going to be your live in and your live out. Down here is where you've got your live and neutral to actually run it. So this is going to be a 230-volt supply to actually run the unit. And then down here are your open therm connections. So if you're running open therm, you're not going to be using this terminal rail here. You're going to have your mains coming in there to run the unit. And then you're going to have your non-polarity sensitive OT terminals that connect to that, that terminal rail there. Once it's all in, close the cover, clips on at the top. And the programming is the same for all of these. Doesn't matter which one you have. So from the customer's experience, they don't know what flavor of Digistat they've got, other than they may have to change batteries in the battery one every so often. So the way you program this, remember, we used to have the left and right hand arrow key, and then we used to have the plus and minus. So similar sort of setup, but you've now got this confirm button. This is like an OK button. So whereas before you would make a change and you'd use the right hand arrow key to save it, it's now a little bit more intuitive, where you use the plus and minus, and any changes you make, you confirm with the circle button. You've got your calendar button there that takes you into to your schedules, and then this is your settings button. This will take you into the back end if you want to be setting up things like whether it's in 24-hour mode, 7-day mode. If you want to get into the service interval, that's how you get in through that. Now the customer can scan this, and this will take them to the Digistat page. It gives them all the instructions that they would need. So it's we've tried to limit, from a sustainability point of view, we've tried to limit the amount of inbox paper guides. So that's why you do get the installation guide, and you get sort of a quick setup guide. But for your real in-depth instructions, you head over to scan that QR code. It takes you to our website. So that's the mains version. The 2290B is exactly the same. It's just you don't have that open therm connection or the mains in connection. You just have that top rail where you've got your live in. So it's called common on and off. So common is your live in. On is what is your normally open, where it will go live when there's a call for heat, and you can also use it for cooling. You've got the normally closed console there. So that's how they look. The one that's probably the most popular, really, because this is replacing the Digistat plus 3RF and plus 2RF. This is your wireless version. So again, the actual Digistat itself doesn't look a lot different. You don't get the screws underneath because you don't take these apart. These sit on either the clip, the wall clip there, or you can put them on a table stand, and the batteries will go in there. And then the receiver part of that, two screws underneath in exactly the same way that we have with our old receiver. But the only difference with this back plate is we do have the open therm connections here. So you've got your live neutral and then your terminals across the top. So your common, so number 1, and your on number 3. So not uncommon to see a link of wire between 1 and 3 if you're trying to switch 230 volts, or you're bringing a 5-core in from the boiler, neutral and live on the first 2 to run it, and then your switch wires there plus your earth. But you have now got your open therm. So if you want to, if you've got an open therm compliant boiler, you can connect to that. So the way you would wire that, then you're going to have your mains on the first 2 terminals. You're not going to use these remaining terminals. You're going to have your non-polarity sensitive open therm OT connections that go off to your boiler. So slightly different backplate. If you're not using open therm, you can just fit it to, it does fit our standard backplate. So if you're swapping out the old SCR receiver, it's a direct swap. So that's what you get in the box, along with the table stand if you want to sit the thermostat on a table stand, and your a set of batteries to run it. Last one to look at is the 2-channel, and again, this is the one that you can swap out a 2-channel programmer and give them immediate load, drive some efficiency by having some load compensation. So exactly the same thermostat. Now you can, with this one, pair it. You've got the options with the receiver to have, you've got your 2 channels there. So the default is to have heating on one side and hot water on the other. But you can, when you go through the setup process, assign this to another heating channel if you want. So you can have 2 heating channels. So it's perfect for zoning a combi. Now you're not going to be using this with an open therm compliant boiler, which is why it's the standard backplate. There is no extra terminals there for open therm, but you've got neutral and live on the top there. Terminal 1, your hot water off. So if you're fitting this to a Y-plan system with a mid position, this is going to wire to the grey wire of your mid position valve and the cylinder stat satisfied. Terminal 2, central heating off. Generally not used anymore, certainly not on our products, but if you've got a system that's got a motor on, motor off valve, you may well be using that. Terminal 3, hot water on, goes out to your cylinder stat common. And terminal 4, typically with your old programmer, would have gone to your wired room thermostat. We're obviously not going to be using that now, so that needs to connect straight to either the white wire of your mid position valve or the brown wire of your central heating 2-port. But that will then just fit on in place of your 2-channel programmer, and then you go through the commissioning journey. Now, all of these have got the Bluetooth control, and the user interface is the same across all of them. You get a backlight now, lots of enhanced features, but a really nice way of being able to upgrade. Now, also, this works on the same frequency. So the RF versions of this work on the same frequency as the old Digistat that use the SCR. So whilst it is easy just to swap these out, particularly with a single channel, you can actually pair these to the old receiver. So if you've got an old receiver in there which is working fine, you just want to refresh the Digistat, best advice would be to replace both bits. But if there's some reason why you can't, if they've tiled up to the screws underneath there and you can't get a screwdriver in there because they've covered the screws, or this is slightly bigger than the old SCR, then if there's some reason why you can't actually fit this physically, you can pair this to the old SCR receivers. Right, quick check to see if there's any questions coming in. Not seeing anything. Last sort of couple of minutes from me. The bit I'm going to take you through now is, if you're not already, I'm sure you are, but if you're not, you need to get yourself signed up on the 9 Degree network. There's many reasons for doing that, not least because we've got online training there in the academy, and we've got the priority shop. But you need to start registering your devices, because particularly if you're fitting Wiser, we've got the Wiser reward scheme. So if you fit 10 Wisers, you get a free Wiser kit, and if you fit 30, you get free kit, and you also get a 50 quid Amazon voucher, and lots of good reasons for registering your products. Also, remember, any Drayton product that you register, you get the extended warranty. So it doesn't matter whether it's Wiser or new Digistat or TRVs. Anything you register gets a 5-year warranty. First year is with your merchant, and then the subsequent 4 are with us. In terms of the online training, there's lots of new modules in there. So we've got Wiser modules. You've got a whole module dedicated to TRVs, as well as the new auto balancing valve. So if you really want to get into the detail and really cover that maths that I covered there in detail, you've got the auto balancing module there. We've got a new module there, new this year, which is the motorized valve module. So that's really getting in bench testing, tearing them down, seeing what's inside. And there are going to be 2 new modules for this year. In addition to motorized valves, there's going to be control pack wiring and fault finding. So well worth signing up and having a look in the academy. The other part of that, the priority shop, is really a good way of getting hold of stuff that you can't get hold of in your merchants. So stuff your merchants don't necessarily stock. So auto balancing valves, but valve only. You know, most of them will sell it with either the 414 or the TRV4 head. But if you're speccing Wiser and it's a new installation of Wiser, you can get your valve bodies from there, and down here you can get the standard EB body as well if you need it in angled and straight. Also, where you can get the gland seals that I talked about and the balancing key, and there are some flash deals that come up. So the current deal is on multi-zone kit. So multi-zone kit 1 and 2 for Wiser, but you are limited to being able to only buy 2. Because we're not looking to compete with the merchants. This is just a little resource, a little bit of a sweetener, sort of a try before you buy. But make sure that you are registered for 9°. Right. No, I don't see any questions that have come in. So that just leaves me to say thanks for joining me tonight for tonight's session. Keep an eye out for the other stuff that's going on the group. Claire's going to be doing some expert panels, and as always, you can always reach out to us on the group, and if there's something that you want to see in terms of training, stick a comment on any of our videos. All of this content goes over to YouTube as well, and we've got the 2 YouTube channels. We've got Drayton Home, which is the consumer channel, talks about Wiser, and talks about how you select your kits and things like that, and what the actual stuff does. And then we've got Drayton Heating channel, which is more of me doing fault finding, and it's repeats of these sort of live streams. And so, but again, any video that you see, if you've got a comment or you think we can do something better or something else you want to see, stick it in the comments. They're always monitored. So there's plenty of ways to be able to reach out and get hold of us if you've got issues or if you just want to see some different content. Thanks for joining me, guys. I will catch you on the next one. Have a good evening.